podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Wayne, how's it going?
I am fantastic, Ed. How are you?
Yeah, good. Good. First, I should say congratulations on the launch of your new book, Teenage Kicks, biography of Wayne Rooney. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, as you quite rightly say, it's a biography of Wayne Rooney, so it does what it says on the tin. Yeah, when he retired a year ago, basically, the decision my agent talked to me about we were talking about I've been writing a Duncan Edwards book for some time.
Right.
And obviously the Wayne Rooney, we were having lots of conversations about that, but then Rooney went and retired, and he said, is there any chance that you could do something on Rooney? Now, for as long as we've known each other, we've basically been having conversations about Wayne Rooney, and I think we probably, we might have even started our conversations knowing each other, talking about Wayne Rooney's transfer request in October 2010. So that's how far back that goes. And really, going way back to October 2010 is I was writing on a blog at the time. We talked about that blog before, and I wrote an open letter, and I'm doing air quotes, by the way, because I never wanted him to read a response to Rooney's transfer request. And it was basically saying, it wasn't please stay or anything. It was basically, if you leave, you're going to be making the bad decision because you've got history in front of you, and you don't always get that opportunity. And he stayed, and everything. And then I started writing books, and it was inevitable one day I was going to write something on Rooney. It just depended when that time was going to come, and the retirement obviously made that very coincidental. So I've been preparing for a long time, for as long as I've been writing. Basically, I've got lots of scrapbooks, lots of newspaper cuttings, folders on my desktop, lots of interviews that I've done. They're already all there to do, so I just started writing it like almost immediately as soon as he retired. Did a few more interviews as well. And yeah, I wanted to do, obviously my style of writing books is very different to the sort of salacious stuff. I'm very heavily focused on my football. Like anyone who's read my Beckham biography would know that, that I'm not talking about all the extra stuff that goes along with Brand Beckham. And it was a similar story to Rooney, really. What really compelled me about writing a book on Rooney was the fact that there's a double-edged sword about him. First of all, that he's not really appreciated. I was going to say, there's a division with England fans and United fans and Everton fans. So basically, all the big places he's been, there's a division in the support, whether they love him or hate him, really. And then there's also that other question: did he fulfill his potential? Did he reach it? Did he surpass it? All those kind of questions, and it's such a compelling character study to go down that route, really.
Yeah. Is it published here in the US? If not, I'll get it on Kindle and have a read. So, well, best of luck with that one. I'm sure it'll do well. And you're right, such a fascinating character. And I really enjoyed some of his press interviews recently. So a lot of candor in there. It's hard to tell how good a coach he is, but Derby are performing some miracles. They may even escape relegation, and then the Football League will almost certainly dock them more points because they won't be able to pay off all the creditors in time. But he looks like he's on the right path to being a great coach as well as a great footballer. Anyway, talked about him so much down the years. There was some interesting football at Old Trafford, wasn't there? You were there, so you can give us the down low on the atmosphere at Old Trafford, which seemed tense. And it was a pretty tense game. United came out comfortable winners in the end, but really wasn't comfortable until the red card, I thought. What were your impressions of the match?
Yeah, it's funny you say that. In recent weeks, everyone's been talking about the improvement and there are improvements in certain aspects. But I've been so, not pessimistic, but hesitant, basically, to look at it. Because you look at the quality of opponents, and the quality of opponents have been respectively poor: Middlesbrough, Burnley, Southampton, Brighton, and you look at that list, and respectively poor, but increasing in quality.
Yeah.
And every time we've stepped up a gear against the opponent, well, in terms of the we've stepped up a gear in the quality of opponent that we've faced. The quality of performance has dropped a little bit. Even against Southampton, they had more shots than us, I think, at the weekend, and they looked like they could have won it late on. So yeah, against Brighton,
Yeah.
I was very much hesitant. I was thinking they're a footballing team. They're very good on the ball. They'll come and probably dominate possession, and they did. The first half was difficult. Sancho
Yeah.
possibly looks the brightest spot from the left. Definitely on Saturday, there was very much a feeling that whenever Sancho got the ball, United were making things happen. And obviously, they took the lead through
Yes.
Sancho.
We're getting more of the Sancho we've seen in the Bundesliga, and just a bit more confidence and involvement. I was just looking at the stats, actually. He is second to Bruno, played the most progressive passes of any United player, which shows you, and he hasn't played all the games, which shows you what kind of player he is. He's not just a wide player that will take on players, though obviously he's been doing that. He's a player that is a creator as well, and I think we're beginning to see the best of what he can offer, which is nice.
Yeah. Well, and definitely from the left-hand side, but every time we move him to the right, the game bombs. Everything about the game plan seems to bomb, no matter who we're putting on the left-hand side. Once Sancho moves, and Sancho's not as effectual on the other side.
Yeah, it's the irony, isn't it? I think a lot of people said this who watch a lot of Bundesliga. He's just better on the left. He's more of a threat there, and if United thought they were buying a right winger, then I don't know where the scouting was going. But anyway, it's going to be a challenge because United could probably do with the right winger again, which is something of an irony.
Yeah, and they were stacked on the left, weren't they? Which is funny about that. They're stacked,
And they
he
still
shouldn't
are.
have really had a place. Yeah, he shouldn't have had a place to come in on the left, but he has done. Yeah, so he started quite brightly again, and then the sort of game wore on. Brighton, they settled very quickly, quicker than the other sides have done. They weren't afraid of United. They didn't let them have any of the ball and anything like that. So, and obviously, I think Pogba's omission helped them settle as well, because McTominay and Fred aren't going to be very progressive going forward. So it was all left on Bruno to take the gambles. And then Brighton settled, and they started having chances, and then they had the big chance just before half-time, which De Gea with a marvellous save. And I think it was probably when they must have had a corner from, they did have a corner from that, and I think when it came back to United, they had a goal kick. And from the goal kick, so it's still 6 minutes before half-time, loads of boos around the ground, and I've never heard that. I was there for Liverpool. I've been, for plenty of times when there's been a few boos around. But Liverpool, obviously, very early because it came at half-time, but this was the first time that I've ever heard it actually in the middle of play. And they're even doing the attack 6 minutes with 6 minutes left in the first half, because everyone was getting frustrated.
Well, the football is a bit, it's a bit prosaic, isn't it? It's not exactly Van Gaal-esque, but it's not super exciting football.
No, it's not. But I think what's happened is he's changed the shape. It's 4-3-3. So you know that Pogba rough red on the other side of McTominay with Fernandes on the other side. So it's a 3 in midfield. Yeah. It's a definite 3. You know that. And what's happened is, and I'll be
yes,
I'm going to be positive about this now, because I'm going to be negative for the rest of it. But the positive things I can take from it. United have looked like more of a team. Before they changed the shape.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
There was an abyss in the middle of the park, and the thing that I've been saying all season is that defence, the midfield, and attack, they looked like 3 separate entities that were marooned from each other. Yes, and every now and again, Fernandes would drop back and he'd attach it all like he was tethering it with a rope. Now, it looks like a team now, and yes, the sacrifice.
It does. It looks like a team that's not awesome. It's not an awesome team, but they look like a team,
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. Yeah,
and the thing we're saying there, they look like a team. It's not an awesome team. And the other thing you can't say is that they're not working, because clearly that's what Rangnick wants them to do. The work rate is up. So what this tells us is they look like more of a team. They're working harder than they were doing, but they're still not very good. So maybe the players need to start taking responsibility. I did a thing. I write up the match reviews for the website that I write for, and the thing what I said, it was sort of part way through the first half, and I was just remarked to my wife, who was stood next to me, and basically said, I can imagine that someone would probably ask me to write a book on this season. I'm not going to do it, but I can imagine that if I did, I'd give it the title, "I'm here because I have to be here," after Harry Maguire's comment from the Liverpool game, because that's what it felt like. It felt like, at one point, Maguire had the ball in the first half, and he didn't know what to do with it. And I think it was one of those where he went back to De Gea, and it felt like He felt like if someone, like from the stands, like you wanted to go down onto the pitch and apologise to them. Like, we're so sorry that we've made you turn up and play a game of football. I'm so sorry that we're putting you through
Yeah.
this, and hopefully get a response back from them as well. But then obviously the second half kicks off and we score early on. A moment of brilliance from Ronaldo that
Changed everything, yeah.
Yeah, and then the red card again changed everything, because in a funny way, I'd almost wanted them to stay with the 11 to know what this goal would have done for United. Would we have learned a lesson? And we don't know
Yeah.
now. We don't know, because all I do know is that Brighton for the last 5 or 6 minutes looked like they were going to score an equaliser. They looked very threatening. They were really
I know.
pushing United back, and United were rattling a little bit. So they were lucky, and the second goal came basically because they were outnumbered. And so I come away from that game not really thinking that I've learned a lot about United. Certainly not thinking that they've learned the lesson, and still thinking. I looked at the possession stats, Ed, after in the 50-50. That's after 4 minutes against 10 men.
Yeah. Brighton always do this anyway. Graham Potter's English, but they play nothing like you'd imagine an English manager would get their team to play. They're very continental in their style. They're heavy on possession. They dominate all areas of the pitch except the opposition goal. If they had a £30 million striker, they might be able to push for a European place. They'll finish in the top half, I think. They're a good side, coached by a good manager who are outperforming their budget, and they had 59% possession. You're talking about possession, 59% in that first half. They dominated United, dominated the chances. Had a couple of big chances. I mean, a brilliant save by Dave, who looks like he's something back to his best now. And I could kind of understand the sense of unease in the stands, because it was dull football. United were being dominated. And, although I completely agree with your assessment that United are much more of a team, and Rangnick has... It took a few iterations, but he's found a method of getting some control in the middle of the pitch, which is basically to play three in the middle there. It just wasn't showing in that first half. So there were very distinct audible boos at half-time, which was a thing that never used to happen 20 years ago at Old Trafford. The world has changed, and Old Trafford has changed for sure. And you can kind of get a sense from that of how supporters feel. Not that they want Rangnick out. They just want exciting football and good football. And we didn't get that in the first half. We were fortunate that United came out in that second half a bit brighter, got the one half chance, which Ronaldo finished absolutely brilliantly, because honestly, in the last 3 or 4 games, he's been really bad to the point where you're thinking, like the Burnley game when Cavani's in there, and it's just so much more movement, and it just feels so much more dynamic with him there. You're like, what's Ronaldo doing in the team again? And now he had to be, because Cavani did the Cavani thing, which is to tell the manager that he didn't feel fit enough, and he does that often, doesn't he, Cavani? Which is a real shame. But this was a different Ronaldo, and I don't know whether he's been stung by the criticism, or Rangnick said something to him, or he just, for some reason, felt a bit more on it. But he was leading the press sometimes. He looked a lot better. He looks more dynamic, and he should never have played that 120 minutes against Borough. He's 37 years old. I don't care how many abs he's got there, which is a lot, by the way. He's
120 abs as well.
Yeah, I know, that's right. That's obviously going to affect him at his age, and he may be unusually fit for his age, but he's not superhuman. Anyway, so he was better last night and scored a brilliant goal, and it just changed everything. It's 2 minutes, basically. Get a goal, we get the mistake from Brighton, Elanga was bright to pounce on it, and Lewis Dunk was clumsy, and Elanga probably wouldn't have scored from there, but he definitely got a shot away, so it's denial of a goal-scoring opportunity. So the referee was right to consult VAR and right to change it. And that just changed everything, because then United were actually able to get some kind of control over the game, which they probably wouldn't have had if it weren't for Brighton going down to 10.
Yeah, well, that's what I meant about we don't know about United now, because you've seen that 40 minutes. You don't really be left with no answers about them. They're thinking, oh, well, we've moved a step forward. All I'm left thinking is, well, Brighton would have probably got a point if they'd had the extra man, because they were controlling the game, they were creating chances. Potter's actual exchanges. McTominay went down at one point. It was 50-50 straight after the red card, and United looked like they were in the ascendant. Say Brighton rarely for Potter, because I would have thought he'd have made an emergency switch, but they were playing with a 3-man defence, so United could have really lacerated them and got a second goal very quickly. But McTominay went down, and then they brought on 2 men, so they changed the actual shape of their team and obviously compacted the defence again. But they put on Lamptey, who's obviously normally right back, but they put him on the right wing.
Yep.
And he
Yep.
was causing a lot of problems. So even with the 10 men, once they were settled, they knew what they were doing. They had an objective about them, and they still looked slick in the way that they moved the ball. And yeah, like I said, they only matched what Brighton did in the first half with 11 against 10. And yeah, that was a concern for me. I look at them and I just think, even at their best, and even when we know that they're trying, I just can't get my head around it, because they finished second last season. I know that there was the mitigating circumstances with Liverpool and Chelsea, but what we're saying is they're better than what they're showing. And if you look at the performances in the last few weeks, people say, oh, they had 30 shots against Middlesbrough. I'm not buying that. I look at
a lot of them are low quality shots, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even if they weren't, even if they were high quality shots, it's Middlesbrough. There should be 30 shots against Middlesbrough. That's not improvement. That's the standard what you should be setting. Don't talk to me about this being a great United side. And then they put in a...
Well, I don't think anyone's saying that.
But sorry, but I think it's the people when they're being really optimistic and they want to take it away from the players and everything like that. What I'm seeing from this team at the moment is an argument that Solskjaer did a better job than what he did. And I know that he didn't. And I'm Solskjaer's biggest fan. So you can't... These players have got to have their own standards at this point, because it's going to look like Rangnick, out of self-respect for wanting to prove that he's a good manager, and Ronaldo and possibly De Gea are going to be the people who drag us to getting a Champions League place that nobody else wants us to have. It's ridiculous. Honestly, I don't know where the players' pride comes into it, because that's where we've seen Liverpool humiliated us, City humiliated us just as badly in a different way. Wolves came and got a result.
Outthought and out-tacticked us,
Where's the pride? At some point, they've got to think, we're playing for Manchester United. And I know we won. We won. And I'm just looking at the boos before half-time and things like that, where the supporters are like, come on. It's not like we're not going to, This isn't one season, by the way. This is the culmination of 3 or 4 seasons of seeing stuff like this. So that's why the supporters are getting on the back.
Or there's that story that Ferguson knew where the club was going. Wayne Rooney said it in one of his interviews, that Ferguson knew where the club was headed and got out at the right time, basically. I'm sure there's a lot of truth in that, but it's been 8 years after him and David Gill left, and Ferguson was able to take what the Glazers would give him, which wasn't a lot of money before he left, and perform miracles with it. Perform that last final miracle of winning that title with a side that wasn't that good, 2013 side. And after that, United have put people in positions where they've never had experience of doing it. David Moyes, like fish out of water. Ed Woodward in charge, had never been in charge of a football club before. And it's the combination of all these things shows on the pitch, and it has done for years. And I think Rangnick's a smart guy, and I know he's not done a lot of coaching recently. He's never coached an elite European team before, but I think he knows what he's trying to do here. And he's tinkered a bit to try and get the best out of these players and get something that functions as a team. And I completely agree that United are looking like a team now. And the level should be, if you look at the players, with a coach who knows what he's doing, the level should be better than all the other challengers for that 4th spot. And it should be much closer to Chelsea's level, much closer. I don't think with these players that they are at the level that Liverpool and City can perform. I do think they're some way off that and some way off the best European sides. But this Chelsea side is nothing special. Tuchel's a smart manager and he knows how to win games. But there's a lot of flaky performers in there. United have got a lot of flaky performers as well. I hate to be reductive and start talking about kind of passion and pride and stuff, but there is an element of that because they've got someone who's got a game plan now. And it's a game plan that should give United more control. And there's plenty of good players in there, lots with limitations, but plenty of good players in there. And this 4th spot should be United's, really.
Yeah, can I just qualify that, Ed? Let me just go, the pride thing when I'm saying that. What I mean is, I'm trying to be generous when I'm saying that. But what I mean by this is, we saw that they finished second last season. So I don't want to come straight out and say that these players aren't good enough. But I think obviously there's a difference in there. There's a level of this intangible thing that we don't see, and it comes down to that personal drive. And it's either
Yeah.
personal drive and quality. What's the balancing act in that? And I want to say that they've got the quality, but then we haven't won a title for 7 years, 8 years. We haven't looked like winning a title for 7 or 8 years. So the proof is in the pudding in terms of the quality. Now, then this is what I said to you earlier about when I looked at the last couple of games. I think that they are trying. I think it's fair to say that they are, and the managers, like his basic requirement is for them to try. So we're seeing that they're just not very good, and it's like I said, very good. They're not very good in terms of a really good Manchester United side. We're looking at a team that is worse than a Ron Atkinson side because they don't entertain as good as a Ron Atkinson
Sure.
side.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's the pride and the passion and Remy Moses and Brian Robson and stuff like that. And football's a different game. It's much more sterile. So a play like that wouldn't necessarily work in this.
Oh, I think Brian Robson would work in any era. Brian Robson.
Oh no. He would. But you know what the point I'm trying to make with
I
this.
do.
So
I do. Yeah.
let me make another point with two players that we have got. And this will illustrate kind of what I'm trying to say a little bit better. Now, Harry Maguire's coming for a lot of criticism, rightly so, because his performances haven't been very good.
That's generous.
Yeah, okay, well, I'm trying to be generous with this. Victor Lindelof is the man who would step in to replace him. And his performances, generally since he's joined us, haven't been very good. So you're looking for a replacement for a replacement. Neither of them, you're looking, saying they're going to be in a team that's going to win the league. But at the moment, Lindelof you would pick on form in front of Maguire. Lindelof never convinces me as a defender, but he's progressive with the ball. He moves forward and he's not afraid to sort of move the ball. Maguire looks afraid to move the ball, and that's what I'm talking about. And maybe it's bravery rather than pride.
Well, Maguire's confidence is so destroyed now. That's why he plays the kind of cowardly ball back to De Gea rather than trying to progress it. I mean, because the one thing you'd say about Maguire is he does try to progress the ball into midfield, and he does that from a fairly high starting position. That's actually pretty useful for United in terms of constructing attacking.
Yeah,
at his best. And last season wasn't bad, right, from him. He had a dodgy first season. Yeah. His second season at United wasn't bad at all, and we saw some of the best of Harry Maguire. It's not his fault that Leicester negotiated really well and United paid double his real value. His limitations are always going to be, as Ralph Hasenhüttl completely deconstructed him, not very good in reverse gear. He's just never going to be that, which means that he is much better suited to a team that plays a deep line. Now, United cannot play. United can't play a progressive style of football if they play a deep line. So you have one or t'other, basically. If you want to control games, and Rangnick wants a team that controls games, it's very hard to have Harry Maguire in there, or you're going to give away chances. He must know this as well.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned the Arsenal thing because he was referring to Maguire. And I made a point of that on social media, and everyone's saying, oh, he didn't mention him specifically. I'm like, who else do you think he's talking about? And who else, by the way, when you watched the 90 minutes, was getting dragged around purposefully for that? It was obviously Maguire. And like you said, it's not his fault. I've taken a sort of back seat with these players because sometimes when it becomes obvious that they're not good enough, then I stop having a pop because I'm like, well, it's not their fault. And I know it's not the fault of anyone's really, but it's when you expect a little bit more and you're not sure if you're going to get it. And so now, if they play, I have stopped criticising Maguire really because if you play him, you expect him to do the things that Harry Maguire does. So that's really on the manager. And it's the same for a lot of these players. You can't play Paul Pogba in games and not expect him to play like Paul Pogba does. You're going to get 90%, well, let's say 70% brilliance, and then you might get 30%. You'll get caught in possession by any midfielder in the league. But you put up with that because you think the 70% brilliance will carry you through. And it's the same for many of these players. Ronaldo, you put up with that 90% of standing in an offside position because the 10% chance he's now going to deliver a goal like he did last night. And I think too many players that we've got the other side of that are they're 50, 60% bad and 40% good.
And that's why United will finish 4th, 5th or 6th or something like that, mainly. Apart from they obviously lost confidence in Solskjaer and he had to go as a result. But There's too much inconsistency and too many limitations amongst most of the players. Last night, we got a mix of performances as a result. We got Bruno doing Bruno things all the time, trying, scored the goal, obviously, brilliant finish, sat the keeper down right at the end. Brilliant finish from Ronaldo, even though, and more of a performance from him. And I thought McTominay in the back four weren't terrible. McTominay was okay in midfield. I thought he's got limitations himself, and he's neither an 8 or a 6, and that causes him problems. And Fred was probably pretty poor of those. And there's just always a mix of some performances and some not, because most of them wouldn't be in a title-winning side, would they? United do need to finish fourth. It's very important for the club as a whole. And it's important because, I don't know, maybe we'll get some interesting away ties if we're in the Europa League or the Conference, but it's dreadful from a financial point of view. It's devastating, honestly. It's the difference between a world-class midfielder or not. And assuming that the Glazers don't do something wild and release a bunch of equity and stick it into the transfer coffers, which I'm assuming they're not going to do. So it's really important. It's important for the club's status and hiring the best next manager and getting the best next players. And the trouble, of course, with all this inconsistency is there's just an insane amount to do for Richard Arnold and John Murtagh and John Murtagh's deputy, which we're apparently going to get in the summer. Pogba is going to leave unless they come up with Ronaldo-level wages and a 5-year contract, which would probably be insane.
It sounds very much like Manchester United under Ed Woodward. So
yeah. So let's just assume he goes, and Lingard's going, who's not playing any part. Mata will go. Lee Grant out of contract. He's a mascot anyway. I think they're 4 out of contract this summer, and then that's not and Cavani, obviously. Maybe that's 5, and then there's a bunch of others who just don't need to be there. Phil Jones, Nemanja Matic, Eric Bailly are all definitely available for sale. If Ragnick's there, probably Aaron Wan-Bissaka, but they won't get any kind of return on the 50 million that they paid for him. Dean Henderson will have to, for his own professional development, needs to leave. United will have to bring in a keeper because we know that De Gea lost focus without real competition. And he knows now he's got real competition, even if Henderson's, not in possession. United post Ferguson and Gill have never done this kind of squad change, and it just looks like there's so much to do that it would be almost impossible for United to do that. I look at this, and for some kind of progression, they need to finish 4th. It's desperately needed. That's why we need the performances right now. But Ragnick is going to be there for another 2 years afterwards as a consultant. He's not going to get this job. Let's assume it's probably Pochettino who's coming in to get the job because he's available and he wants it. And he can leave in the summer, and maybe they'll finally sign him at the 3rd time of asking. And he's not going to perform miracles. He's just not. He's not going to get this group of players. He's going to get them. I'm sure he's going to have a game plan. He'll have a style. He'll want them to work hard because he's in that mould as well. But he's not going to get them all to overperform when they haven't done that for the last 5 years. And many of these players have been here for that long. So I see some stormy waters ahead for United. But right now, really important that United got this victory. Really important coming into a difficult run of games. The next few weeks and March, next couple of weeks and March are challenging. And some kind of confidence has to come out of these games right now. Otherwise, the season's going to come off the rails.
Yeah, it's funny that Rangnick came out and actually said the only objective is Champions League qualification. He actually said 4th place. He said that's the best that we can hope for. And I'm like, well, there's 13 games left. And, even Ollie in his deluded optimism sometimes would say, oh, well, he took the Fergie line, though there's games left, we'll not put an objective on it kind of thing, where he's just come out and said that. And I just think that's so modern Manchester United. And I admire Rangnick's honesty, and I think he's probably right. But it's just so modern United. And there's something about me that thinks, well, he's given them an objective. Isn't it just like this squad of players that they've got a real weak objective? Because it's now in their possession. They own that 4th spot. And I know Arsenal have got games in hand.
Well, and Wolves and Tottenham and West Ham.
Yeah.
If they, not West Ham. So, we'd be ahead of West Ham. So if you assumed that Arsenal, Spurs and Wolves won their games in hand, they'd be ahead of us. So they probably won't do that, but, because they've all got faults as well.
Because possession is 3/10 of the law. In
Yes.
this case, we've got a tenuous hold on it. But what I'm saying is 13 games left. It's a strong position to be in, and at least it's ours. We've got that 4th position. It's just like United to sort of, bobble into 6th position from this position. I don't know. Especially when he's put out the objective there, and it just seems so weak considering where we were at the end of August. Not saying that we're in a particularly strong position. I'm talking pre-Ronaldo. At the moment where if you'd just said, we don't need Ronaldo, but we really need a holding midfielder, and then we'd just pushed the boat out and done that, then, we could have been challenging for a title. We would have been much better positioned.
Yes, I know.
To challenge for a title.
Vanity and pride did that deal. It's very hard to understand what the counterfactual would be there. If United had signed a holding midfielder and not Ronaldo, and they weren't going to sign no one, by the way, and they just, because City were going to sign Ronaldo, they came in and got him. What would be the position? I don't know. He's got 15 goals this season. They're important goals. No one else has got those goals.
Oh, don't make me think it could be worse. I don't need that.
I don't know. I mean, I think he's unbalanced the team, and I think he contributed in part to Ollie getting sacked. I know he got those important goals early in the season, but I think it just completely threw off the tactical plan. So I don't know where United would be if they'd done that. Obviously, they've committed an insane amount of money to this deal. The transfer fee was 12 million over 5 years, but his wages are 25 million post-tax. He's the highest earning footballer on the planet. They've committed a huge amount of money to this, probably more than a really top-class midfielder. So it was a big gamble. Anyway, shall we move on from this and we'll talk about Leeds at the weekend? This is going to be fun because it's going to be completely different.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? 0-0 last season at Ellen Road in front of nobody. So at least there are going to be fans there.
There will be, and it'll be passionate.
Difficult ticket to get as well. By the sounds of it, nobody I know can get a ticket,
right?
And I normally know a lot of people who are there. So it's a bit of a struggle, and as it should be because it's an intense game, and you want to see some of that intensity because that's what it's horrible. Don't get me wrong. Anyone who's ever been to Ellen Road can attest to that. It's like. I mean, I don't know why this is the analogy that comes to mind, but I describe it like a gin hangover. If you just replace gin with the worst hangover that you can think of, that's what a trip to Ellen Road is like. It's absolutely horrible.
I'll never forget my first time there. Getting off the coach, and you walked through this tunnel under the road, walking up to Ellen Road, and there was just like raining bottles from Leeds fans, and the police were there laughing. Because they're in it with the Leeds fans. South Yorkshire Police, who've got their own problems, by the way. And so it will be intense for sure. It's 20-odd years since United played at Ellen Road in the Premier League with fans there. But we're playing Leeds. Leeds are having a difficult time. Second season syndrome, isn't it? They are not getting the results of last season. Still playing their BLs away. They'll still be very open. Yeah. They're playing with Dan James as a number 9 right now, although he scored a couple of goals the other day, didn't he?
He looks like the kind of forward who would trouble our defence, if I'm being honest. I look at them and I think you're right, second season syndrome. A lot of teams have worked out how to play them a little bit better, how to sort of capitalise on their naiveties, shall we say. Yeah, but they are still pretty good sometimes, and they do have good days, and, United... in front of that kind of atmosphere. You remember a lot of these, none of these players would have been at none of them would have been at Ellen Road. No. So there's no one really, only Mick Phelan on the staff will know what it's like to go to, or Fletcher will know as well, what it's like to go to Ellen Road and that kind of atmosphere. And they might think, it's just like Anfield. It's not. It's a very difficult type of bitterness there. It's like,
yes, it's the right word.
Liverpool have got bitterness, but they've got pride. There's no pride in this one. It's just bitter. So these players, I don't know if they'll be prepared for that. To be fair, maybe the Leeds ones won't, but they'll be in tune with their own fans. So if their own fans are afraid, they'll be like, "Oh my God, this will raise us a little bit." And it just stands to be seen, doesn't it, whether it'll impact this group of United players badly, or whether or not it won't. Because
and how it'll impact the Leeds players as well, because it's just such a range in results. They were dreadful at the weekend. They got well beaten by Everton. This is an Everton side that's been dreadful this season too. And they had that wild game against Aston Villa with all the goals where Dan James scored a couple. And then they lost at home to Newcastle. And before that, they had a great game at West Ham where they beat West Ham. And that was a pretty good performance as well. And yeah, so I've no idea the level of performance that they're going to be able to get. I know how they'll play. I don't think they'll be like, how could they? I can't think of a scenario in which they would play defensively at home in front of their fans for the first time in 20 odd years against United under Bielsa. It'd be absolutely remarkable if they weren't completely open. And that's exactly the kind of style that United need to play right now. Exactly. Just so perfectly set up for a United team that just need a game to be a bit more open.
Well, unless for all those reasons that you've just mentioned, that's why he does do it, to catch Rangnick off guard.
Sure, yeah. It would be absolutely wild if Bielsa did that and got them playing a bit more defensively in front of their own fans.
Yeah.
But it would be the right thing to do. And he is a smart coach, of course. But yeah, it's been really hard for them. Obviously, they've had injuries and that's not helped them. And we'll see who they can get out on the pitch on Sunday morning, isn't it? Sunday, I can't
2
remember
p.m.
what kickoff time
2
it
p.m.
is.
UK.
2 p.m. That's it. 2 p.m. Yeah. I started to think in West Coast terms when I'm thinking about that. It was great against Southampton, that performance, when I got up at 4 a.m. for it. You know? But hey, that's my own fault. I left Blighty and I regret it frequently when we have that kind of kickoff. But anyway, yeah, this is just 6 a.m. This is fine. I will be there. I'm sure I'll go off on a pub to go watch it. Beer in hand with some United fans, some expats, and I will be enjoying this one, I hope. Touch wood. So it's a podcast, so you can't see me.
He was doing it, dear
my thick
listener.
skull.
I assure you he was tapping his head.
Yes. So, yeah, I know less of what performance we'll get out of Leeds than I do against United. I think United are moving towards something. Not rapidly, and not something great, but moving towards something of more consistency. And I do trust Rangnick, even though he's a bit of a technocrat, to understand the situation. It's only really that Wolves game where he's been really outthought, I think. Most of the time the game plan just hasn't been executed.
But you mentioned Van Gaal earlier. It's a good comparison, obviously, because of the shape of the team and everything. But at least the football is better to watch than it was under Van Gaal. I'm not.
For sure.
It's a low bar. Don't get me wrong. But when I was being very pessimistic earlier on. I do share. I do see what people are seeing in that there's a general kind of improvement in the way that we're playing. It's just that sort of hesitance because of the standard of opponent that we're playing against. But yeah, like you said, he can prove me wrong for sure because of all these big games we've got coming up, and I'm sure that he will. Ralph Rangnick, Smarty Reds.
Yeah. Well, after Leeds, it's Atletico, and then there's Spurs and City, and a whole bunch of tough games, really tough games. Yeah, no, this is what we want. So Leeds, they went with a 3 at the back at the weekend against Everton. They were completely taken apart. I think they'll go back to a back 4. I just can't see any other situation with Klitsch and Koch sitting in front of them. They just got to get some kind of. They can't ship 3 goals, and expect to score 4. But it's their forwards that are always fun. Rafinha's a great player. I think he's going to go on to bigger and better things. Obviously, Daniel James looks like it's probably not the deal Leeds needed to do. They needed a midfielder, but he's looked like he's playing every week, and I'm sure that's helping his development. Finally, Rodrigo and Jack Harrison, weren't they? And that'll cause United some problems. They'll get enough of the ball, Leeds, in forward areas. They're very direct in moving from back to front, and this is United back 4 that you can't trust yet. Really, hopefully Rafael Varane feels okay. He's another one who's like, I'm not quite sure of my body.
Well,
so I'm hoping he's feeling all right, because he was shortly before the game, wasn't it, that he said, I'm not quite right.
No, Maguire's poor form aside, I think maybe the shapes helps this as well, the 4-3-3. That they're not as porous in defence. We're talking about them not being tethered. Well, they're being more tethered to each other than they were before. I think that's helped.
They're definitely not losing as many chances. I mean, you can see that in all the data. They're definitely not giving up as many chances as they used to.
I would hope that he's going to not play Fred on Sunday, play Pogba and Fernandes, be a little bit more adventurous with it, because what you've got in that midfield.
Yes.
I mean, even Pogba has been putting a bit of a shift in, like making sure that his body's around.
Oh, he really has. He made, who was it? It was game before last. Which game was that? Was that the Burnley
Southampton
game?
at the weekend. Yeah.
Southampton game. I think he made like 5 interceptions and
Yeah.
ball recoveries. I think it suits him better. I said this to Dan at the weekend. That shape is basically what France play. But he has more players around him and therefore a bit more ability. And if he's willing, for personal reasons, to get the right kind of contract next, and I don't know, maybe he has a good relationship with Ragnick, who knows? Don't know, behind the scenes. But if he's willing to do everything, make those interceptions, make those ball recoveries, be disciplined about his positioning, which I think he has been since he's come back. Have that little bit of pride. He's never going to be intense for 90 minutes. We just don't get that from him. But he's going to be a massive asset until he leaves in June.
From the midfield three, you don't need like 50 tackles a game. You just need like that, like you said, a relatively good number of interceptions, the effort and application there. So you don't necessarily need the 2 holding midfielders in that shape. Well, you don't really in many shapes with the personnel that United have got, but they've been playing them anyway. But now they've got McTominay, who's been doing, I think he's probably the best fit if you've got McTominay, Pogba and Fernandes in there. They'll all be present and be around, and I don't think Leeds, they've got the pace of James, but apart from that, I think that midfield should be strong enough.
Leeds are weak in midfield, and that's where United should be able to get a foothold in this game. Anyway, I guess that's it. Any other thoughts before we leave?
I can't think of any apart from another plug for my book.
Oh yeah, everyone go buy the book. Where is it? It's on Amazon and other places that aren't the Evil Empire.
Yeah. Well, if you are listening anywhere in the world and you want free delivery, then go on Book Depository because that's what they do. Yeah.
Nice. Good. Yeah, independent. I know I now live in the home of Amazon, and if you walk around downtown Seattle, it's like every building is Amazon. It's got the Amazon font on the name of the building. It's got some dumb Amazon naming as well. So you can't escape it here. But anyway, Book Depository there is. Good luck with the book sales. Another. I will get around to getting a copy myself. But yeah, good luck, United. Let's get a performance. Wouldn't that be nice? Totally dominant performance. Big win against Leeds. Everyone will have a great weekend.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. Bye now. See you next time.